Alrighty. So last week we had a discussion presentation about the energy rays, and we had such a good discussion that we ran over time. And some of you asked if we could continue tonight, especially with the part with balancing, since we kind of ran through that out at the end since we were over time. So we're definitely going to do that. And then Susie, you brought up a couple questions last week that I have included in tonight's presentation. So we'll touch base on those as well. So I figured we'd start by, just as a quick refresher, jumping into the different energy centers. And let me get this window away. So we have the red ray, which is the root chakra, and it is the center of survival, sexual reproduction, and the fundamental vitality of self. This ray receives the life-giving prana or intelligent energy from the earth. So we have intelligent energy that is given to us constantly at all times that funnels into our system from the red root or the red ray. And we also have intelligent energy coming in through our violet ray from the creator himself. Basic blockages in the red ray in 3415 raw calls this ray fixed. It is not clear if it cannot be blocked or if it can be activated and opened to a greater degree. So some students of Confederation philosophy believe that this ray may be partially blocked by survival issues. So some things that block the red ray would be things such as financial issues, safety concerns, and reproductive complications. Moving on to the orange ray, also known as the sacral chakra. We have the center of personal or emotional identity, expression of power on an individual basis, and a relationship of self to other self. So the orange ray is all about how we view ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, how we love ourselves, as well as one additional person. Basic blockage will often demonstrate itself as personal eccentricities, can't say that word, or distortions with regard to self-conscious understanding or acceptance of self. So things that block the orange ray is a lack of self-love or acceptance, and things such as issues with a spouse, colleague, or a friend. The yellow ray, we have the solar plexus chakra. It is the center of identity in groups and power relationships in and among groups. And some basic blockages resembles most closely that which can be called the ego. Blockages in this center will often manifest as distortions towards power, manipulation, and other social behaviors concerning those close and associated other selves. To completely unblock this ray, each entity must love all which are in relationship to it, with hope only of the other self's joy, peace, and comfort. And then those with blockages in these first three energy centers will have continuing difficulties and ability to further their seeking of the law. The green ray chakra, which is important right now, especially as we are in harvest tuning for density, is the center of universal and unconditional love. It is all about acceptance, non-judgment, and healing. The key to protection and the springboard to intelligent infinity. And some basic blockages in this area may manifest as difficulties in expressing universal love or compassion. Quote tells us, if you have issues with sex or love of life, if you find your relationships lacking, if you judge yourself or others, if you find your relationships with your family or your work trouble, all of these things can limit or even stop the flow of energy into the heart. The awareness of all as creator is that which opens the green ray energy center. Blue ray, we have the throat chakra. So we have the center of wisdom, light, honesty, clarity, and inspiration. It is the first true spiritual ray, and not all transfers are of a nature which has integrated mind, body, and spirit in self-knowing. Blue ray communicates to others this entirety of beingness and is the first center to radiate without the necessity of response. The first giving beyond green ray is the giving of acceptance or freedom, thus allowing the recipient of blue ray energy transfer the opportunity for a feeling of being accepted, thus freeing that other self to express itself to the giver of this ray. So for instance, this group serves as a great catalyst for all of our blue ray chakras, as well as, those of us who present, as it gives us the opportunity to openly communicate and teach one another and learn from one another. Basic blockages include, in this area, may have difficulty in grasping its own spirit mind complexes, and further difficulty in expressing such understandings of self. They may also have difficulties in accepting communication from other selves. Next, we have the indigo ray, which is also known as the third eye chakra. This is the gateway to intelligent infinity. It is the center of faith, of the adept, of magical workings, prayerful intention, and the radiance of being, the work of spirit. It is also the seat of the logos, the ray of intelligent energy and infinite possibilities. fed by the disciplines of the personality. And fate is one thing that definitely affects this rate. And common blockages in this rate is those blocked in the center may experience a lessening of the influx of intelligent energy due to manifestations which appear as a sense of unworthiness that struggles to accept the reality of self as created. And we have the violet ray, which is the crown chakra. It is the vibratory essence, the slum, or the energetic signature of self, a thermometer reflecting overall balance, an analog to intelligent infinity. And this ray is the spiritual giving and taking from creator to creator. And common blockages is the remaining center of energy influx is simply the total expression of the entity vibratory complex of mind, body, and spirit. It is as it will be. Balanced or imbalanced has no meaning at this energy level, for it gives and takes in its own balance. Whatever the distortion may be, it cannot be manipulated as can the others, and therefore it has no particular importance in viewing the balance of an entity. Alrighty, so now that we've gone through just a quick overview of what we talked about for each individual array, we're going to talk about how to balance these. So as we go through our daily activities, our individual arrays can be dimmed or they can be brightened based on the catalysts and experiences that we go through. The centers may be balanced through the use of meditation and balancing the catalytic thought or energy with its antithesis until the catalyst no longer has its prior effect on you. Ra gives us an approach on how to balance our energy centers. In 5-2, Ra says, where you find patience within your mind, you must consciously find the corresponding impatience and vice versa. Each thought that a being has in its turn an antithesis. The disciplines of the mind involve, first of all, identifying both those things of which you approve and those things of which you disapprove within yourself, and then balancing each and every positive and negative charge with its equal. The mind contains all things. Therefore, you must discover this completeness within yourself. So Quo goes in a little deeper to say, at the end of your day, it is well, therefore, to rest yourself, your mind, body, and spirit in meditation and review the events of the day that provided you this food for growth, the catalyst of opposites that each may utilize to become more and more the one infinite creator. For example, those of Ra use the catalyst of patience and impatience to demonstrate how this process is accomplished. If you have found yourself at some point in your day becoming impatient with yourself or with another person or with the situation that you wish would find its completion, you in your mind relive that situation that brought about the feeling of impatience. You magnify the lack of patience that you demonstrated when your patience was at its end, so that it is blown out of proportion into a great lack of patience, a tremendous impatience that calls forth from your inner being its opposite, calls to that portion of your being which has patience, which has known patience, which has become patience. And that patience then is also allowed to become the magnified equivalent or partner of impatience. Together, they are filling your inner screen of perceptions so that the great impatience is balanced with the patience that comes from understanding. So to simply summarize that all up and put it kind of into steps, what you would do is you go into meditation, you quiet the mind, and then what you do is you relive the emotion or the energy or whatever the situation was that you felt threw you out of balance. And so once you recall it, you bring it forth back into your conscious mind, and Ra tells us to magnify and to feel it again, to blow it out of proportion, to feel pretty much the original emotions that you felt in that instance, and to even blow it up even more, to feel just the full degree of that catalyst. Then next, what you do is you find this antithesis. Ra used the example of patience and impatience. So if you were impatient with someone today, you would feel that impatience magnified, feel it again, amplified, and then you would find that patience that exists within you as well. And you would magnify that as well, feel it. And within that, you find the balance between the two. And Quo says, then you look at yourself as a portion of the creator that has now been expanded to a greater portion of the creator, so that you feel that the patience and the impatience are utilized in a balanced fashion to allow you to know more of yourself as the creator, which allows the creator to know more of itself through your experience. This is the journey of a lifetime, perhaps the journey of many lifetimes. For this process, the utilization of catalyst within your third density illusion is one which is infinite in potential and yet can also become that which is the creator within you now and forever. So does anyone here practice balancing in their daily practice? Anyone here have any examples or?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I I use it in my practice.
Awesome. I know it's definitely one thing that I'm working on, including doing it more daily, especially versus not just when something happens, really throws me off balance. It's something that I'm working on incorporating on a daily basis to keep my energy centers kind of flowing and in harmony. Alrighty. So last week, Susie asked a really good question. She asked if we could have, for instance, one chakra be dimmer and the other chakra be a little brighter. And, so for instance, if you do well in social settings, but, your sense of survival may not be as strong. And the answer is yes. And Ra calls that a tone poem. Let me go back. All right. So everyone has a certain balance between our energy centers that is unique to each self. Cole defines it as that which reflects the current status of each energy center operating in unison with each other energy center. So pretty much everyone has a unique tone poem, and it is pretty much the culmination of all of our energy centers, and they create as kind of a tone or a sound that can be heard by those who have the ability to hear this. So Ron gives us some examples of historical figures and their energy configuration. Ross says of General Patton, this entity was of a strong yellow ray activation with frequent green ray openings and occasional blue ray openings. This particular entity did intensive group work in administration, military organization, and war planning. Thus his strong yellow ray activation, which has to do with a group and social settings. But he also frequently, according to Raw, felt love for others or the self or the creation or all of the above. Thus the green ray openings. And he even occasionally turned that love outward to authentically communicate integrated selfhood in a way that illuminated and clarified, thus the occasional blue ray openings. So you have here his green ray it wasn't always open. There were openings or instances where it would open. He had a very strong yellow ray, as he kind of had to be since he was a leader within the military organization, and so on and so forth. We also other examples. Ross says of Carla. Ross said that it may be viewed as extremely even, her red, orange, and yellow rays. Her green ray is extremely bright. This is, shall we say, balanced by a dimmer indigo. Between these two, the point of balance resides, the blue ray of the communicator sparkling in strength above the ordinary. In the in the violet ray, we see this unique spectrograph, if you will, and at the same time, the pure violet surrounding the whole. This in turn surrounded by that which mixes the red and violet ray, indicating the integration of mind, body, and spirit. So Carla, when as she was channeling, Ra looked at her energy system and was able to give a reading of each of her centers and how they all corresponded and were balanced to each other. So Ra says, her first three rays, red, orange, and yellow, were very balanced. Her green ray extremely bright, but that was balanced by a more dimmer indigo. And then you have Albert, which I'm not going to say his last name because I'm sure I'll butcher it, but he was a famous composer. And Ross says about him that this entity was able to mobilize great amounts of energy in what you call money. This entity spent much green ray energy both as a healer and as a lover of your instrument known as the organ. This entity's yellow ray was bright and crystallized by the efforts needed to procure the funds to promulgate its efforts. However, the green and blue rays were of a toweringly brilliant nature as well. The higher levels, as you may call them, being activated. The lower, as you may call them, energy points remain in a balance, being quite bright. So you can see here how every single one of us has a unique configuration of energies, and not all of them have to be just open and bright at all times. They all have a unique balance, and that balance is unique to us. And this tone poem changes throughout our daily experiences. Quote says about the tone poem, it is useful to begin to recognize that all of the energy centers do need to be able to function simultaneously. And in the simultaneity of their functioning, there is a new order or harmonization that arises as a possibility and indeed as a task. But when you have learned, let us say, to open the heart, it will still be the case that you have issues that must be dealt with at the level of the red ray, at the level of the orange, and at the level of the yellow. First, as we have said before, the heart chakra does not open and then stay open. The energy body as a whole has a basic vibration, which does not change very much at all. But within that range of vibration, there is constant change, just as there is change in your oceans because of the pull of the moon. You have inner tides, both daily and at periods longer than a day. Some are cyclical, on a regular basis, and some are unique to certain phases in your development as a spirit. When you go through dark nights of the soul, Susie, you asked about last week, and the energies and the vibrations changes a bit as you move through challenging times. Does anyone have any questions on the tone poem?
I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about how it is that we hear those tone poems. Like, did Ra give any information about like how are those perceived or seen?
That's a great question. So quote actually gives us, they tell us that it depends on the person. So some people can hear them. They may manifest as images, feelings, or thoughts. Those type of things are or outgrowth of our energy center. So it kind of depends on the individual, but everyone is able to somehow tune into their own energy centers and are able to listen. So like I said, that could be a sound, it could be a ringing, it could be a feeling, it could be a constant emotion that you're feeling on a daily basis over a long period of time. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, Doug. There's something to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest too that the fact that they used word poem, I think, is important. They could have done other things to talk about the harmony of the balance and harmony of the chakras would create a kind of unison noise, unison tone. But the reason why they put it as a poem, we need to be thinking about that. What are poems, if not something that is extraordinarily carefully designed to give the reader a portal into something deep? When people write poems, they write them very intentionally so that the reader's drawn into this kind of a koan, drawn into something that is universal. And so a tone poem is similar. I don't know if you guys ever did this where you can rub something like the bowl and you wet your things and then all of a sudden it starts to go, top of the bowl, the singing bowls. So you have this balance and harmony and just the right amount of vibrations, and you have that energy coming off. But I think the poem part is real important, the depth there. Okay, thanks.
That's a great point, Doug. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments on the tone poem?
So if you wanted to know, it'd be nice to have Ra read all of our energy centers for us. So I understand how you might tune in. And for me, it probably would be sensation or a feeling as to what's going on in my energy centers. But I'm still not real clear how you read your own chakras, other than maybe during meditation or silence, sit and guess you kind of know if certain emotions up, like fear, I guess which one might be being attacked.
I can weigh in a little bit on that one. First off, DeMarcus shared some really great things about the red ray. DeMarcus, could you go back just for a second?
To the red ray? Yeah.
Yeah. So financial issues, safety concerns, reproductive complications. We're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs here. And so that root level is important. There's one other thing that I would want to add to that, of those three, and that is to fully accept our incarnation here, the embodiment that we have in this exact moment with this exact body and just the way it is, as it is presented in this moment. And that is a way to allow the red ray to fully come in. And so that would be something that I would want to add there is a lot of us have a hard time saying yes to the incarnation. And when we can, it doesn't mean we don't struggle, but when we can do that, then that would be a red ray boost. And then in terms of the capacity to read our chakras, I think you probably already do it, Barbara, if you were honest. Because you can just walk in and you can be around other people, and I'm assuming you will pick up. There's something about you that will pick up the luminosity of the other person. And you can kind of get a sense as to what degree are they walking around with an equanimity capacity to just be fully present, stable, mind, body, spirit. You're probably looking at a blue ray to indigo ray entity at that point.
Mm-hmm. I found that very interesting about Carla being very bright in the lower three chakras in light of everything she experienced in her life. You know, it wasn't always easy for her, especially a lot of her physical ailments. Yeah, that was nice to hear.
I thought that was interesting also.
I would say that it's not that right there. What you're saying about the red, orange, and yellow was less about her illnesses. Actually, the reason why she had such a massive amount of green open, that was more about her trying to accept her illnesses.
Okay.
The green ray was pretty massive, but the lower three chakras, these have to do with. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a physical illness, you're going to have lower chakra triad. I don't know what she did have some red ray stuff, but really she was always trying to balance the social conditions and her inner sense of self. And she balanced all those really well. But the fact that she had to constantly deal with physical pain and all of that was the green ray.
Well, I suspect if your mind-body complex does not feel safe, I'm going to say safe in the world, that it's probably very difficult to open up the green ray. You know, I mean, it seems like there would be some sort of battle there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And I remember when you asked about how you can find out, I remember I placed this quote in here from one of our earlier slides. And Ra says the thoughts of an entity, its feelings or emotions, and least of all, its behavior are the signposts for the teaching learning of self by self. In the analysis of one's experience within a day, an entity may assess what it considers to be inappropriate thoughts, behaviors, feelings, and emotions. In examining these inappropriate activities of mind, body, and spirit complexes, the entity may then place these distortions in the proper vibrational ray and thus see what work is needed. So these different things are kind of like process signposts for a physical outgrowth of letting you know which centers may need work or balance.
Yeah.
I see Neil, he has his hand up.
Yeah, I just had a thought that came through when you were going over red ray and orange ray. And I was thinking about red ray being first density and minerals, elements, and our body being mostly water, and the practice of, imagining light, imagining love in the water to kind of charge it, then to heal the body. And then maybe doing something on the same level of like imagining light surrounding the body as like, I would say not like a separate entity, but imagining it, full of light. If those two ways could just through visualization heal potential, blockages. I wouldn't say like pre-birth blockages, but minor intentional blockages.
I like that. Thank you for sharing. I never considered the charged water part, of course, outside of us, but then of course, we have the water inside of us. So doing that, that's actually awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely going to try that. Does anyone else have any questions on the chakras or the tone poems? Right. If not, then we're going to do a quick little tone poem show and tell. All right. So let's open this up to discussion. So here are a few questions for the group. So there are, what do you think is your strongest energy center and why? What do you think is your dimmest or most blocked energy center and why? And how do you think you can better balance these centers? And so individual wisdom is welcome. If you hear someone have an issue that you once overcame, or you may have the answer to unblocking or balancing, then feel free to speak up. But I would start, I'll say personally, I think my strongest is my blue ray chakra, and that is the sharing of wisdom, open communication, making others feel comfortable and safe in a safe space. I get a high from teaching and, helping others and communicating what I know. I would say one of my dimmest chakras would be my orange ray. I've always had an issue with self-love and loving and accepting myself. And that would be a dimming in the orange ray. So I'm currently, that is one catalyst, so red energy center I am consciously working on at the current moment to better unblock. And I'm working on balancing that orange ray by loving myself, taking better care of myself, and really just appreciating myself. So if anyone else would like to share, you don't have to answer all three. You can answer just one of them or a combo. Would anyone else like to share their tone poem and what they think?
All right, Doug, we want to hear from you.
I talk too much.
No, we want to hear you talk.
Well, I think that I feel like my strongest energy center is my orange ray, because I feel like for me, how I know that I'm doing my work and that it goes all the way to the indigo is because of how well I think I know myself and all of the faults. And sorry about the police. We're staying at Kensington in Philadelphia. It's like it's where people who can't make it in gangs go, and it's very poor. Anyways, the orange ray for me is where I would feel like I'm strongest, get a sense of myself. But that's because I've balanced my red ray and my yellow ray really well. And so that relationship, I think, is the orange ray, which has become who I am. But the orange ray is directly connected to the indigo ray. It's really the other side. The indigo and the orange are like two sides of the same coin. So for me, to the degree that I've developed the orange ray, it's also been the gateway or the portal to the indigo. The other rays, of course, have to be balanced to really do the indigo ray. But as I am becoming more able to give myself over to the one infinite creator for the highest and greatest good of everyone, I'm finding myself walking with a different kind of gravity, maybe a gravitas. And it's this sense that I see everything and everyone as little fractals, little holons of the one infinite creator. And it's not just a conceptual thing, but it's an embodied yes to, oh, there you are. When I say you, I mean me too. It's like, there we are. The next person, there we are. So that has directly connected to the orange ray, but it's also the indigo ray that has to be there in order for me to recognize kind of a unitive consciousness way. The dimmest one that I have most blocked, I think it's also the red ray. I think it's the red ray, but I feel like I'm being shown how to slowly open up that spout, because if I open it up too quickly, then I feel like I'm going to fry everything else. So the constant yes to all of this, to this moment right here, to the next moment right here, and then the next here, that is me opening it up a little bit more, the red ray. But I'd say that is work for me, especially as I put myself in places where I'm uncomfortable. And how to balance the red ray. Let me say really quickly, the red and yellow ray are connected for me, because when I'm in an environment, especially with people that I know feel very differently than me in terms of their worldviews, my red ray goes up to feel like, am I going to survive this? Am I going to survive this emotionally here with these people, And am I going to project my stuff onto them? So like that red ray is like survival inside a social setting. So I feel like if I balance the red, where I'm saying, yes, I'm incarnating here to this moment, and then balance the yellow for all of those people in front of me whom I want to say, no, not these people. I see that as equivalent to me saying, no, not this body, not this moment. So if I can say yes to both, then I think I can work as the infinite creator inside that difficult construct sometimes. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. So I actually have a question for you. So as someone who is working on balancing the orange chakra, and you say that's what you're strongest, what are some things that you do consciously to balance your orange chakra or to keep it open?
The orange chakra is going to be a relationship between the red and yellow. And so it's always a negotiation with your unmanifested self. And so what I do is when I'm in a situation, like, for example, I'll just give you an example. When I'm flying over here, I was sitting with a man he was a guy that needed to talk a lot. And I actually made a conscious decision. So my yellow ray, because it's me inside a social construct. And I tried to green ray the love. And I felt something very beautiful, just holding, not needing to have him not to change. And I would all these plans that I wanted to do by myself, but I allowed the moment to be. And then when the yellow ray, he's talking, and I thought, you know what? This is the infinite creator speaking to me right now. So the yellow ray, it was like the green ray of accepting everything there kind of came into the yellow ray, and I saw him as the creator. And then I also knew that who I am in that moment is not just Doug, but it is also the infinite creator as Doug connecting with this guy and this chosen moment. This moment could be chosen if I continue to follow, not try to make anything happen, but follow to see what kind of tone poem can be created between the two of us. And so what I felt like I was as the orange ray is I was dialoguing as Doug with my unmanifested self of like, man, I really want to be doing this other thing, but wait, maybe this is an opportunity. What should we do? Let's bring in the green ray, accept, back here, embrace. So Doug is doing this, but then I realized I was beginning to channel the one infinite creator and then connecting, and then something really beautiful happened. We talked for 2-3 hours, and it was an incredibly meaningful conversation for him. It was for me too. And so just to end by saying the orange ray is a dance, and it's not just you. It's a dance between who you think you are, your unmanifested self, and then the degree to which you allow yourself to channel your higher self or the one infinite creator or whatever. And that force comes out. And so you have you have a triune nature in that orange. And you end up knowing that you're the person that's actually opening the valve for more of this fullness to come out or closing the valve. See, there's intention here. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Doug. That definitely resonated. But anyone else like to share?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to ask Doug, in art, there's complementary colors. And when you're painting, like if you mix the complementary colors together, they create beige or neutral. So that's just interesting that you said, like, it sounds like the things that you're strong and your weakest are complementary. Is that correct? Flow with me.
Which ones did I say I was strongest and weakest? Oh, red and orange?
Yellow, I thought.
Yellow?
What's your strong one?
I thought it was yellow.
It was orange.
Okay.
The strong is orange, but it's connected to blue, or indigo, rather.
Okay. Well, those are kind of actually. That's kind of an interesting thing to me. And I kind of relate to that. I love sitting down, talking to people. And most of the time I'm the listener, and I'm empathic, and I'm an Enneagram 2. And I have really had to struggle with probably my blue ray. I'm not sure. The one I'm having to learn to set boundaries and the importance of setting boundaries, and how it's okay to be about me sometimes too, because I end up just absorbing a lot. So I guess my stronger, I would say somewhere between orange and green. I'm very, like, I love to go out to the grocery store and connect with somebody. That just really jazzes me. If it's just 2 minutes in the line just to have something that makes us both walk away with a smile and a chuckle that really makes me feel good. And I guess just the balance is coming in. I have been laughing and saying I'm boundary Betty, because once you get a taste for it, it's like, okay, this is not that bad. This is actually, it feels more balanced to set boundaries. And anyway, I'm rambling, but that's my thought.
Like you're sharing out all those boundaries with you and one other person, or is it more boundaries within a group or social setting?
It's boundaries with individuals, people I really love, where it's just been kind of one-sided listening. But for example, like I had this really profound, intense dark night of the soul that went on for about 2 years. And I had one girlfriend, she kept calling me and saying, like, where are you? What's going on? How are you? Is something wrong? And I remember this one time she talked at me for 36 minutes and then she's like, well, I gotta go. So I talked to her about it recently. I'm out of my dark night of the soul, and I have more perspective on it. And at the time I couldn't explain to her what was going on. And I couldn't explain to her how she wasn't showing up for me. And I had to stay away from her because I didn't have the bandwidth to take anybody else's stuff on, good or bad. I just couldn't do it. But by setting a boundary in a very loving way, I was just very kind and compassionate. I just said, this is was happening for me at the time. And I just was gently able to tell her, you need to listen sometimes too. You literally talked at me for 36 hours under the guise of I love you and I want to check in on you, but I felt like you vomited on me and then you got off the phone. So yeah, it's mostly individuals, but what I'm finding is I'm finding this very loving voice to be able to say kindly, like, you just can't be that. You can't treat me that way. You can't treat me with disrespect. If you love me, then you're going to show up with respect. And it's very empowering. It's been really different. Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you're definitely doing orange ray work as well as blue ray work. So the orange ray setting those boundaries with one other person, and then the blue ray is the ability to then communicate that openly and freely. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to share? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Barbara.
I'm, what's funny is you can kind of, you go up and you're kind of go through all of them. I'm going to think that my dimmest one, the one that's frequently the dimmest would be my red ray. But it's very dependent on the other chakra energy centers. So when the red ray, it has to do with safety in the world or something, my mind body, where I just have gone through 6 weeks of something, and it felt all red ray. But on the other flip side, when my blue ray and my indigo ray are unblocked, it's just amazing, what happens. It's as different as a night and day. My green ray is probably the one that I seem to be very focused on, and not so much with, if I read the words you have there, with the non-judgment or acceptance. Of course, acceptance is one of the words that I think about almost on a daily basis. But the unconditional love, or opening to, if your red ray is a little disturbed, it's very, very hard for me to open my green ray at times, or be open in my green ray, but other times it's just very bright. I'm not explaining this very well, but I just find it interesting how sometimes it's just like going up and down and around, and some are closed, some are open, but I'm definitely aware of which ones are blocked and which ones are open and how they work with each other. I'm not explaining that very well, but yeah. And as far as balancing them, just the awareness of it and thinking about, I call it all the different practices that I've set, that I can maybe pull out of a little practice box. But right now I am dedicating at least 30 or 40 minutes a day to just to sit in silence and try to focus more on what I'm feeling, what's going on in the body, and versus, I'm aware of the thoughts as they pass by, but really just trying not to think and just really get into the feeling sensations of what's going on in the body. So I've been doing that more recently.
And I'd like to just stick with you just for a second here, Miss B, because what you're doing there.
You know me so well.
Well, I mean, but I would say like you are doing a boot camp whenever you're doing that kind of 30-minute exercise of noticing your feelings in your body. You're doing a boot camp on self-awareness there. And that's a lot of work in your unmanifest self.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And that's also indigo ray work, because that's what the adept works on with the unmanifest self intentionally. But here's the thing. That work in the orange ray, when you're doing that kind of meditation work, is part A to a part B. And it's not really fully complete until the part B is also, you're able to do it when you're with other people. Because notice that the exercise is exactly the same. You get with somebody else, you're in somebody else's presence. The first thing that we do is we assess, it's largely unconscious, but we're assessing, am I going to survive this physically? Am I physically going to survive? All right, check. Am I going to emotionally survive this? In other words, to what degree am I alike these people? To what degree am I completely not like these people? Where do I fit in with these people? These are all questions that we can ask ourselves in the moment. And it still can just be unconscious, but you kind of get a sense there. Am I going to emotionally survive?
Absolutely.
And then we get into the yellow ray of it is once you feel like you're getting a sense of the lay of the land, who's there, what energy is there. And then if you try this maybe next time, is then as the orange ray, once you get a sense of the feel of the energy with the people you're at, then say to yourself, this would be unmanifested work. Say to yourself, well, what do I want to do in this environment right now? Like, how do I want to have my incarnation in this moment be in this moment? Because you can ask yourself that. And if you want to be the one infinite creator, of course, which is indigo ray, then you can intention that moment, even if it doesn't mean that you're going to do a lot of stuff. You could just say, I desire to be an instrument of peace and love for the highest and greatest good for everybody here. And then you're actually using your orange ray to actually sort of like bring in, through your incarnation, bring in this light. The light goes up. So I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's pretty spot on about the orange ray. Wasn't quite recognizing that, but you're absolutely right. And I think about how I am in relationships and other people. Yeah, including myself.
I know you've told me that before, so I think that's your best use of your orange ray.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Next, I see Neil with his hand up.
Yeah, I had a interesting kind of 360 thought that happened yesterday when I was trying to balance myself. I usually go for a walk in the woods and preferably near like a flowing river or stream. And I get social anxiety and don't really like to talk to people on my walk. So sometimes I'll wear headphones, and the song All You Need Is Love from the Beatles came on. And that really balances me. I feel, connected with nature, and my heart opens up. And, I just had the thought of like the creator being on Earth, and what a better example than the Beatles, of a group of humans sitting together kind of with instruments and just being in nature, coming up with a song about love and freedom together, and then using their Blu-ray to kind of channel that out into the earth. And they're all, perfectly aligned with their yellow rays mixing together. And I thought that was a good example of kind of potentially wanderers to just being conscious creators on earth.
That is awesome. That's a great song. Thanks, Neil. All right, so we are running out on time. So I have this one last quote. This is from the Raw Contact Series Resource Guide. And it said about the tone poem, however fragmented, divided, and disharmonious our notes may be, we are symphonic pieces of music that tell the story of who we are. That story shapes through various tones and moods as we move through the chapters and challenges of our lives. And in the orchestra of self, our energy centers open and close in correspondence to our thoughts, feelings, and activities, each center expressing one of 7 major notes, with any flats, sharps, and subtle gradations between. The more that we love and forgive ourselves, integrate and balance our energies, and discover the self as creator, the greater our inner harmony. Thus, the tone poem of self produces a euphonious sound or melody, giving pleasure to the ears of many. Thought I would end with that.
Nice.
So thank y'all for joining me again. The energy centers of chakras, that's something that is so vast and topic. We could do a presentation probably every month and still wouldn't cover everything, but this is just brief. So I'm glad that y'all joined me and we got to do this again.
Yeah,
Marcus, put the recording from last week up?
Yes.
Okay. I definitely would like to share that with a couple people.
Absolutely. Doug, would you be able to do that in our Discord?
Yeah, it's already in the Discord. Susie, are you part of
Okay.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
that? Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, let me invite you to our Discord forum. We have a Building Forth forum there, and that's where we post some things to each other, like this link. But in the interim, you've listened to the podcast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you forwarded me a podcast about your ships, and I forwarded it to a cousin, and she loved it. And so I look for them on the Build Forth podcasty stuff.
Yeah, the new one's up, and it's and Fred just put it up there too, so it's up there right now. Yeah,
I just posted the link in our group chat, Susie, if you want to click on it and save it.
Okay.
Yes. And I would like to just invite y'all next week. I'm going to do part B on the ships approach, just give some more practical stuff, not real deep. Like I said, each letter can be a book, but just something to help us be the greatest caregivers we can be, whatever degrees. Great job, DeMarcus. Wonderful.
Yes. Thank you, DeMarcus.
Thank you. Would anyone
Good
like
night,
to
everybody.
stop?
God bless. Bye.
Oh, never mind. Good night, everyone.
Good night.